Alright, g'day fellas, we're back again. People have been asking me how's Token Relic Demon Hunter after the patch changes. So, I'm going to show you some games. I played the deck all the way up until 100 games, so you can see the ratio and its finality, pretty much. So, a couple of changes to the cards before we get started. The Relic of Extinction went from 2 mana to 1 mana, meaning it's just super easy to fit into turns now. Feels super good at 1 mana. 2 definitely was a bit too much for it. Next change, Battle-Worn Vanguard went from 1 health to 2 health. This is the biggest change by far. It just means it survives so many more turns and you can get a second rotation of dudes out, as opposed to it being like a one and done type deal. So Vanguard feels super nice now. I still would try to avoid dropping it on 2, and I would still try to use it as a 3 mana card. With obviously attacking at the same time. But it's getting there. And the last change is that Relic Vault went from 3 mana down to 2 mana. And everyone was saying like, oh, well, you should definitely play 2 of these, right? The answer is no. Okay. There's this secret little rule in Hearthstone. We're going to go into the weeds a little bit before we get the game started, because I want to explain this. So, if you have a card, let's say it says, draw a Death Rattle minion. Okay, then you want to have at least 2 Death Rattle minions in your deck to give value, okay? If you only have 1, there's a 50-50 which card you draw first. And then your draw card might be a dead card because you draw it second. So 2 statistically means that you'll likely draw the draw card before at least one of these. So that's the rule, okay? With locations, because there's 2 charges, right? But you got 6 relics. So 2 charges for 6 relics means that in this current setup, you are always going to get value out of the vault, okay? But if you put in a second copy, that means you have 4 charges for 6 relics. So you're going over that 1 to 2 rule, which is why a lot of the times it feels dead in hand at the end of game, or it's just sitting on board with no relics in your deck, okay? Especially when you take into account that you don't always have the mana, especially in those early turns when you're playing your early relics. You don't have the mana to drop a relic vault for value. So even though you would want to, sometimes you just can't. So because it goes over that ratio, that's why it just doesn't feel good as a 2 of. But if you're getting greedy, you could hold your relics out a bit longer. Sure, you can go for a 2 of, but that's why there's only 1. Anyway, on with the games. G'day. Game number 1. Let's get it. So, we're coming up against a warrior. One of the weaker classes in the current meta, along with Demon Hunter and Paladin. So, this hopefully will just be a blowover win. We got a pretty nice opening hand, 1 drop into a 2 drop. And then we find out it's a rogue. Rogue's one of the stronger classes post-patch because the Edwin buff that wasn't really needed. So, a little bit scary, but pretty common to come up against. This guy's running Swashbuckler, so it probably means it's more of a thief type style, which isn't the scary one. The scary one's the miracle. So, see how we go into this. It's 0 cost Wild Paw Knoll. Feels bad. Trying to decide what to do. I'm thinking he might have at least part of the miracle package, so I'm going to drop a Carney around turn 4 or 5 because that's when they'd normally want to try to pop off with that type stuff. It only eats a Swashbuckler, so don't get a lot of value out of it. And then he pulls a Mitre from Reconnaissance. So the Reconnaissance pool's actually pretty small, so they pull Mitre pretty reliably, to be honest. Which is a bit of a feels bad. You get to see some nifty little Naga action here. Just feels so insane in this deck. throws a couple of dudes down. Like, okay. Should I draw? Like, it's not a lot of pressure on board, but because I actually have an okay play on turn 6, I was like, I shouldn't draw if I already have the play, right? I should just play the play. Which is what I end up doing. My hand's a bit dead for turn 7, however, so turn 7's probably going to be a draw. But hopefully that travelling merchant gives him a bit of trouble. He's cycling again. He does find an answer for it. A snap freeze is pretty annoying. But he only gets a 5/5 dude out, so that's not too bad. Because I somewhat have a play, I decided to just trade off my need for greed instead of playing it. And get another slightly bigger travelling merchant out on the board. So the merchants are holding up really good. I figured his hand was pretty trash because he only had 3 cards. And 2 of them he had last turn and couldn't clear my dude, so he definitely won't be able to clear the second one. I get a very timely Naga here, get to play out my entire hand. And the 2 Travellers are always going face, and then I realise, oh, I've got lethal, but rub it in rogues. Rub it into the rogue a little bit and play the Relic of Extinction for the fun of it. Moving on to game number 2. We're versing a Paladin. So I haven't seen many Paladins, I've got no idea what they'd actually play, like what the popular archetypes are for it, because I just don't see it at the moment, so I definitely don't have a strong opening hand. Oh, turns out, similar to the last game, we're back to versing a rogue. So this guy's traded away twice, which is pretty scary. Because I got dimensions, I thought, may as well play the Phantasms nice and early. Because they're not going to get too big. The rogue matchup doesn't go for very long, so I may as well pop them out early to make my dimensions hopefully get quite a bit of value. Again, we'll Akani on heading into turn 4 to try to stop the pop-off turn, hopefully. And this does look like it's going to be a pop-off turn. I'm really hoping for a, what's the Draco card, the weapon? That'd be sick to counter right about now. But they drop a 0-cost Wild Paw Knoll into a 0-cost Wild Paw Knoll into a Draco. So, without any Thief cards, they've got 2 0-cost rushes. Feels pretty good. And I don't have many options in my hand here other than to drop a Naga and start rushing into things, so I do exactly that. Get some really nice trades. But I'm about to take 15 damage to the face, so I'm definitely on the clock here. Super sad to see Edwin there. Obviously, I probably could have pushed enough damage to have killed this guy if he didn't have all that extra draw, so I was pretty sad to see that. So we got double Nagas out on the board with a nice healthy target to throw into. 8 health versus 8 health. He only needs 1 extra damage. I don't know how much the miracle decks are running as far as direct damage goes, but I hope it's not very much. Hopefully I can hold out and get this win. He's fishing for it, he's fishing for it. Ah, and a wicked stab. That'll pretty much seal out game number 2. Okay, moving on with game number 3 of the video now. We're up against a healthy little hunter. So we get the old Sire Denathrius in the opening hand. Sometimes it's a struggle to get there against especially hunters, but you keep it anyway because by that stage you're always going to need the healing. We get nice double 1-drops. Trog's really good against Quest Hunter, but this guy's playing the mid-range version based off that drop. We've got Artificer in hand as well. So we've got a pretty dead hand right now. So I thought I can either, do nothing, or I can actually... May as well just play the Coordinated Strike while I've got my Naga out on the board. Deals a bit more damage. Gives me a bit more things to play with next turn, so... Drop a little bit early. And yeah, we got a nice healthy little board leading into turn number 5. Gets his Harpoon Gun on curve, which was a bit shit. But it didn't look like he pulled anything too worthwhile off it, otherwise he would have played it. So I'm trying to figure out when's the right time to play Relic Dimensions, and I think him only having 4 damage on board's probably the right time, and Akani doesn't counter too many things on turn 5. Drops a Peasant, that's easy enough to deal with. Discounted Vanguard feels really nice. Decided to make a lot of dudes and get the Travelling Merchant value out again. Have I told you how much I love Travelling Merchant? It's insane. Right. He got his second Harpoon Gun, by the way, which is pretty insane for a 40 card deck that doesn't have any way to draw it reliably. He swarms the board and I've got nothing in hand, so this game's pretty much a wrap for me at this stage. So may as well try to clear off something. Bolner's pretty interesting to get as one of your 2-drops. It's kind of the more spicy one. He goes full Zug here, which I don't even realise gets me a second Artificer. You'll see about halfway into this play that I actually realise, like, holy shit, everything's happening again. What's happening? And then I realised Bolner was kept up because I just thought he would die. So pretty huge swing turn. Almost definitely won me the game and almost definitely lost him the game. But he still has quite a bit of pressure on board, so it's not done yet. But if we win, that was the turn. So I think he's trying to figure out what just happened here, but this guy ended up adding me after this game. We talked about it a bit. He's a really nice dude, so shout out to you, Sneezy Dwarf, if you're watching. Yeah, we got a nice healthy board full of relics. Hydrolodon's pretty terrifying. It's a really good answer into this. And there are ways to trade into this. I'm just not sure what the best way to do it is. I know I need to get 1 more attack so that my demons from my hero card have 5 attacks, so they can go into the Hydrolodon head and the Rat King. And then I just need to trade off that 1/1 to make board space, so... Trade everything in. Try and figure out if I can afford to use my hero power and take something out, or whether I should just sack minions. I decided to sack the minions instead. And throw the 8 damage to face. So we're set up for lethal. He gets Crush. I didn't quite do the math, but it wasn't quite enough, so we sneak away with a win out of that. On to our next game now. We are up against a Druid. And we've got an all-keep hand. We've got a 1-drop into our 2-drop, into our 3-drop. Feeling really good. Like I said earlier, you always take Vanguard as actually being a 3-drop. Getting Need for Greed a little bit early is a bit shit, but we can always trade that away at a later date. Kills off Trog. A little bit annoying. Trog normally gets pretty good value against Druid. And then we pull a little egg out of our Maze Runner. Oh, Maze Guide. So the egg, one of the worst ones you can get. I believe there's 2 0 attack 2-drops. And they just feel awful to get because you have absolutely no way to actually activate them. So they're just dead on board. Hopefully the enemy doesn't know that and he trades in, but Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate when that happens. So the Druid matchup is normally a pretty good one for this deck. It's normally a bit too much early pressure, but they're starting to tech in a lot more of these early cards that can deal with the board, that makes the matchup a little bit more bearable for them. So it's making it a little bit harder for your daily token relic demon hunter decks, but still a better matchup than a lot of the others. So it looks like I might have to play Need for Greed for 5 mana on this next turn, which is not something that you want to do, but sometimes you just have to do it. Unless I draw something to save me. I don't draw something that saves me, but at least I draw my 2 big guys so they start infusing, which is always nice. Artificer should be up and running by the time I hit turn 8. He gets Topior on curve. Terrifying, because I thought the only thing I had going for me was that he was out of bloody minions. Or out of cards, I should say. Get a little Wraith Scale action going. Drops a Miracle Growth. It's only a little one, and if he gets to charge with his 3/3, which means I actually get my Wraith Scale Naga stays alive. Now I make a mistake, I trade in a little bit early. Actually no, I don't disregard, I still got a big Travelling Merchant. I remember at the time I was thinking about what the correct order was because I didn't want to miss out on the Vanguard value, but I still wanted as big of a Traveller as I could, so. He gets huge and he eats most of the Wraithscale Naga, and he forgets that he should have killed the Wraithscale first and loses an extra 2/2, which means my Vanguard stays on the board. I decided not to use the Vanguard and just go with my Artificer. He's not very souped up at the moment, but he plays 3 relics. Now every relic, it's as if I started the game with them being juiced up to 4, so that's why I wasn't worried too much about board space, because I knew they'd be between a 1 and a 3. Turns out there are 2. Plays another big board clear, but he is starting to run a bit low on cards, so. Topior's terrifying though, and splitting that card means that he's almost definitely got a Nourish in hand now. Decided to play a couple more tokens and go the Race Scale turn, because I think maintaining board pressure is the important thing right now. I decided to just sling out the Relic because he's played his Flipper Friends, he's played a Scale. I think for sure he shouldn't have too many more big wide clears left. And that forced him to play Denathrius, which finally pops my Nerubian Egg. But because my hand's pretty dead, I either have to try to draw something, which might just lose me the game, or play Denathrius. I decide to get greedy, and I get super lucky by getting a Relic of Extinctions. If I didn't get Relic of Extinctions, I think I still would have been fine. I had a lot of outs. Kurtrus was another one that could have been drawn. But I've still got my Denathrius here, which feels really good. Obviously, always terrified about Theatar. So I decided to counter a minion, because all I'm worried about is Theatar right now. He doesn't have many cards left, so hopefully he doesn't have too many minions, and I can get some good value off. He ends up clearing it before I can proc it, which is a bit of a feels bad. But my Relic's up and working again, so you can pretty much get a full board going. Clear off a couple of minions, make the trade-ins difficult. This should be a pretty hard board for a Druid to deal with, so This shows the power of the early Artificer. And yeah, hopefully we get the win here. Gets another scale, which is annoying to say the least. But he can't clear off everything. You see me giving a little fist pump there. This one's in the bag. So Denathrius is doing a ridiculous amount of damage at this stage of the game as well. So yeah, it was doing 31. Alrighty. Next game. Hunter. Hunters are normally pretty fun. The trick is for hunters, like most of the other decks, get off to a good start. Which we have. We've got a 1 into a 2 into a 3, and even got the coin Relic of Extinction if we get into trouble. So it's about as good as you can get for the openings. Maybe a Maze Guide instead of a Ram Commander is a small improvement. Quest Hunter is the harder matchup for sure, but it is still beatable. Definitely still beatable, especially if the Vanguard lives. What I found against Quest Hunter is that you still just need to go on the board as hard as you can, because the harder you go on the board, the less they have for face. Because they're gonna have to deal with it. It starts becoming super problematic when they do just go face, because there's no healing in this deck outside of your hero card. I guess Denathrius, but against the Quest Hunter you're not really going to get to Denathrius turns, so you just have to go, and you have to go fast. So I correctly predict that it's a Ice Trap. And I use my 2 Extinction Relics early anyway, just to give all my other ones buffed up, because I'm not going to get value out of the Extinctions anytime soon. And I do just run straight into the Explosive Trap, just so it's out of the way, and I can just keep going with my plan. Again, I predict another Frost Trap, which is nice. I really want to get Vanguard going here, but I'm kind of worried about an Explosive Trap. For similar reasons, I'm going to test it because I have Xylag next turn. So I just need to know. Turns out it's not, which is super handy information to have. And sets us up real good for a Xylag turn into a Zymox turn. It's Freezing Trap, that's cool. Pretty much never going to play that Whelp. Gets a taunt, but that's fine. I do have my Wraithscale Naga in hand, so I do have a lot extra push than what it looks like on board. I don't actually have to trade into this. He clears as much as he can, and he gets his big guy out. I get a second Wraithscale Naga. I've only got 2 little rush dudes, so I decide to just, yeah, play both Nagas. They're just doing 6 a pop every time. I should be able to, one of these stalks will go into him. Oh, no, they just both went face, and I just win the game there and then. Feels pretty good. Alright, last game for the video. Coming up against a scary Warlock. So this deck's still around. They did get nerfed a little bit. The location lost a 1/1. But still a very strong deck nonetheless. So we got a good start. We got our 1-drop and a 2-drop. Now I decided to not actually play the 2-drop because Relic of Phantasms is just very weak as a like summon 2 1/1s on 3. So I decided to lose a bit of tempo this turn so I can get some value from the location and swarm the board a bit. He does abuse it pretty well and constructs a pretty good board himself. But this sets us up really nice for a turn 5 Relic Vault, Relic of Dimensions play. So he goes mostly face, which is to be expected. I just trade in a little bit. I decided to just drop a ram and not attack with it, just so it's another body on the board. It's probably not going to come from my hand next turn anyway, but at least this way I might be able to push a damage face, and it's kind of saving me 1 mana. So Dimensions turn, we pull an Extinctions, which is super good. So we trade that ram that I preloaded earlier, got rewarded for it. Now I do have my Coordinated Strike, but I decided not to use it because I've got a Wraithscale Naga in my hand, so we want to make the most of that. So I'm pretty much dead here unless I get some really good connections. I want to play the Traveling Merchant, but I thought I'd hold it to see how this goes before I actually do. Draw last because that's what pros do. Get a little bit of a shit connection, but we do get a clear with 8 health left on board, so might just be able to sneak this one away from them. Depending what they drop here. If they dropped Imp Master Rakan, we're in a lot of trouble. Doesn't drop much of anything. We get another Coordinated Strike, which is nice, and we get our Hero. Hero would clean up a little bit, but Coordinated Strike gets me a lot more pressure on board, so yeah. We end up getting heaps good position on board, and this one's pretty much a sealed deal. So that's that. So as I said at the start of this video, I did end up playing 100 games with this deck list. About half of them pre-patch, about half of them post-patch. So here you can see my final results. 53 for 47 with a 53% win rate. So not as good as I would have hoped. And not to make excuses, but the reason why I think that is that Rogue is a bit of a tricky matchup, and they got really popular after the patch. So although this deck got better, the decks that this is weak against got better as well, or weren't touched. For example, Mage has always been this deck's worst enemy. It is such a tough matchup, and Mage didn't get touched at all in this last patch, and everything got nerfed around it, so Mage became very popular. A lot more mages, a lot more losses. As you can see in the record here, loss, 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 loss. Every time. Oh look, we got a win there, but there are a lot of losses there. And before the patch, we were actually playing a lot of Shamans. And with the unnerfed Snowfall Guardian here it's just ridiculous. Just makes it pretty difficult. So I think this deck is super strong in its current state. I think it just depends what else is roaming around there at the time. So I think as we see a couple more nerfs and a couple more changes, and because Demon Hunter still isn't really popping off, you might even see a couple more buffs to some of these cards. And this would be the list to watch out for if they do start nerfing mages in particular. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. I appreciate it. And yeah, stick around on the channel for some other interesting decks, and maybe a greedy Relic list might be coming in the future. Alright, catches.